Since the time we began having televised presidential debates, there's always been this one iconic moment that shifts the narrative in favor of one candidate or the other. Kennedy versus Nixon, the sheer appearance of Kennedy versus Nixon. Kennedy looked young, energized, and especially better dressed. Nixon looked crusty, raggedy, decrepit, unhealthy, and bitter. Ford versus Carter.
There is no Soviet domination of Eastern Europe, and there never will be under a Ford administration.
I'm sorry, could I just follow? Did I understand you to say, sir, that the Russians are not using Eastern Europe as their own sphere of influence and occupying most of the countries there and making sure with their troops that it's a communist zone, whereas on our side of the line, the Italians and the French are still flirting with possibility?
I don't believe
that one gaffe shifted the entire sentiment. Humor. Reagan's ability to be charismatic and funny turned the tables on Carter.
Governor Reagan, as a matter of fact, began his political career campaigning around this nation against Medicare.
There you go again.
Just a simple line, here you go again. This one in the debate for Reagan's second term might be the best one-liner of all time in debates.
You already are the oldest president in history, and some of your staff say you were tired after your most recent encounter with Mr. Mondale. I recall yet that President Kennedy had to go for days on end with very little sleep during the Cuba Missile Crisis. Is there any doubt in your mind that you would be able to function in such circumstances?
Not at all, Mr. Truitt, and I want you to know that also I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience.
The first question goes to Governor Dukakis. You have 2 minutes to respond. Governor, if Kitty Dukakis were raped and murdered, would you favor an irrevocable death penalty for the killer?
No, I don't, Bernard, and I think you know that I've opposed the death penalty during all of my life. I don't see any evidence that it's a deterrent, and I think there are better and more effective ways to deal with violent crime. We've done so in my own state, and it's one of the reasons why we have had the biggest drop in crime of any industrial state in America, why we have the lowest murder rate of any industrial state in America.
George Bush Sr. looking like he's too good to speak to the average person.
Question right here.
Yes, how has the national...
Al Gore might have sounded smarter than George Bush, but he came off as an asshole with these little facial expressions.
Wealthiest 1%. Those are very clear differences.
Governor, 1 minute.
Man's practicing fuzzy math again. There's differences. Under Vice President Gore's plan, he's going to grow the federal government. I've had a record of appointing judges in the state of Texas. That's what a governor gets to do. A governor gets to name Supreme Court judges.
Romney may have made better points, but Obama said it smoother.
I'm glad that you recognize that Al-Qaeda is a threat, because a few months ago, when you were asked what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America, you said Russia. Not Al-Qaeda, you said Russia. In the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back, because the Cold War has been over for 20 years. But Governor, when it comes to our foreign policy, you seem to want to import the foreign policies of the 1980s, just like the social policies of the 1950s and the economic policies of the 1920s.
The most remembered moment from Trump and Hillary's debate.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
Now, the main takeaway narrative from the 2020 debates is that Trump was being rude and speaking over Biden and interrupting, which is why I think this muted microphone thing can inadvertently work in Trump's favor. I actually think that this is a good thing. I have been advocating for this for a long time. Just a clean shut off when the timer expires so they're not talking over each other. But remember, debates are not about numbers, they're about narrative. What sticks in the mind of the people, that one smooth one-liner that is the main takeaway from the debate. That's what wins debates.